Hi, thank you for being here. Welcome to episode number 2 of Tripod's Fireside Chats. Um, so, just a small overview. The Fireside Chats are a series of conversations between Tripod's members and other local businesses about what life is like for small businesses in Lambeth, in creative, digital, and social organizations. And so, here today we have Jen and Sarah from Coralie Dance Company, working with people with learning disabilities, exploring the relationship between performers with and without, um, between dance and other forms, and professional and participatory artwork. And we also have Vicky and Dawn, who are members of Lambeth's cultural team. So welcome, everyone. Obviously, this is all being recorded, so hopefully that's all okay with everyone. That's cool. And then the idea is that we can put it on Tripod's website, and anyone that didn't manage to be here can watch and share afterwards. We obviously want everyone involved, so jump in, put questions in the Q&A or in the chat, and we can pick them up at the end, if that works for you guys. So without further ado, Jen, Sarah, Dawn and Vicky, thank you, and over to you.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Alex. That was a lovely introduction, and thank you for the opportunity, because we're really delighted to be here. So I think we'll kick off, Coralie will kick off, and I suspect that quite a few people on the call have come across our work, but maybe some haven't. So maybe we could just add a little bit to your introduction, Alex, and just tell you a little bit about ourselves, and then we're going to share a tiny bit of our work shortly too. So Coralie is a dance company, and from very humble beginnings as basically an informal activity in a day centre in many years ago. We started in 1989. 32 years later, we're proud to call ourselves a leader in dance created by people with a learning disability. We make original devised work. We've got a main performance company and a youth company, and we also run an engagement and outreach program which takes our work into the community and including into schools. So yeah, that's kind of what we do. We've basically been in Lambeth for quite some time now. In the early days, we were actually a little bit more in Southwark, but then since about 2007, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, that's when we began as tenants of Oval House Theatre. So that's when we really started to put roots down in the local area. And so we were tenants of Oval House until beginning of last year. And Oval House Theatre has now moved to Brixton, to the gleaming new Brixton House Theatre. We are at Tripod currently, which is just the best space, but unfortunately with lockdown we haven't spent that much time in it. But yeah, we're tenants of Tripod, and then we are going to be moving to the building alongside Brixton House Theatre, Carlton Mansions, later in the year. So we very much have our roots in Lambeth now, and I suppose how we've survived as an initial reflection is by the connections that we've made here. Lambeth is such a fabulous borough, and it's so diverse and vibrant. There's a great art scene, and particularly in Brixton, where we are now, there's so much happening. And yeah, we've over time basically we've built up lots of connections. So with individual people and artists, and with organisations like Lambeth Council, and with venues, and we run our studio classes, our regular classes in Lambeth. All of them are in Lambeth, and lots of our participants come from Lambeth, so it's very much home. Although we do work across London and out of London, it's where we call home. And I think it's a borough that we love, isn't it, Sarah?
Yeah. We've been based in the area for a long time. Yeah. Sorry, Jen.
Yeah. So we were thinking that it might be nice just to show you a little bit of our work, just to kind of kick things off, give us a bit of a reference point for our chat. In 2019, Tate, who is one of our long-standing collaborators, invited us to make a film. It's called Dancing to Art. Some of you might have seen already, but we're really proud of it, and we just thought it was a nice way to introduce our work. So hopefully, Sarah, you can press the button.
This picture is telling an urgent message. You can see the boat is sinking due to massive sea levels of climate change and the global warming. It reminds me about what's happening to our planet Earth. It has to stop.
It's got mixture of colors. I can see some circles. Some of the shapes is remind of dancing. It makes me feel flexible of my body.
I like the shape. I like the background. It's brighter, got a merged colour to it. It can make me feel good and it makes me feel outstanding.
It reminds me of a unusual, twisted fairy tale called A Midsummer's Night Dream. There's lots going on, but they're very still. Each of them have a really strong purpose. Every detail, every pose, they're trying to tell you a little story.
So there's a flavour. Sarah, wonder if you could maybe just tell everyone a little bit about how it's been for us over the past year.
Yeah, I had a realization last night that it's actually exact to the day that we moved out of Meanwhile Space, out of Tripod. And so this time to the day, this time last year, we realized it was we needed to respond quickly. And we were just starting a rehearsal process in the studio up the road in Brixton. And so, like everybody, we stopped. But thankfully for Coralie, the period of time that we were in was a research and development period. So we were just about to enter into the studio to explore ideas for a new work, because the film that you just saw was created in 2019, which was actually our 30th anniversary year, which we jam-packed with touring and the performance at the place. We just put everything. We'd been working towards the momentum of that 30th year for a long time, and thankfully that all was a great success and a wonderful celebration and a wonderful way for us to showcase our work. But it meant that the following year, last year, was a time that we were going to regroup and rethink and move forward. So in many ways, we've been able to navigate this last period of time as nimbly as we possibly could, because we're a small organisation, and get digital like a lot of people. Obviously, we're working with people with a learning disability, so there was something that we heard was being called the digital divide, which we also experienced. So a lot of our participants, often those not living independently, weren't able to get online or didn't have access to technology to get online. So a lot of our initial work was just supporting people in different ways, how they could join a digital offer that we were able to provide, and a lot of learning in the background, as everybody experienced. How can we run a dance class on Zoom? One of the first hurdles. But as time went on, it was a wonderful experience to see how engaged, how ready people were, because they wanted to be connected, and how valuable that connection was for everybody, myself included, the tutors and the artists leading the sessions, but also the participants and artists taking part in the sessions. And it sounds so obvious to be reflecting about that now, but it was a vital moment of connection. And then quite quickly, lots of new learning about our art form, which we hadn't expected. It felt like this was just a stopgap, but actually it unfolded and presented new ways of working. One example is that the dancers were able to see themselves as they were dancing, so appreciate what it is to frame themselves differently, and also appreciate dance for camera situations themselves. So obviously they'd been filmed for example, in the film that you just saw, but they've begun to get an understanding of what it is for close-ups and long shots themselves. So different sorts of learning have been happening, and we just recently restarted the rehearsal process that we paused this time last year, with one-to-one Zoom sessions, which we wouldn't have done in a live rehearsal situation. It's an ensemble work that we're making, so we would have brought everybody together, but actually been working one-on-one with each dancer, and it's taken the work into completely different directions, because we've been able to fully embrace the ownership of the ideas by the dancers rather than it being director led, which is an exciting development for us as well. So because we were able, because of the nature of the last year in terms of research and development, it's enabled us to think about new ways of working and discovering new opportunities. Of course, we want to get back into the studio together face to face, and there are good weeks and bad weeks, and you can see everybody's journey, but generally, because we're a small organization and the timing for us has meant that we've been able to discover new ways of working, which has been really exciting.
Dawn and Vicky, I don't know if you've got any reflections from any other small arts organisations that you know of in the area, or who you've been working with, in terms of how they've been getting on the past year.
Dawn?
I was just going to say, Sarah, a lot of your reflections there are really interesting in how they echo conversations that we've been having with lots of arts organisations across the borough, both big and small. And you know, right at the beginning, I think, like you, it's pretty much this week, last year, that we moved out of the offices in the town hall and civic centre around about the same time. And following that, we as a team, we thought it was really important to just contact as many different groups as we could and just see how they were feeling, what their immediate kind of concerns were, and just start talking through where their issues are. And yeah, a lot of everything that you've been reflecting on is I say echoed through all of those conversations that we had, from the worry of the closure, how you then start engaging with the participants that you regularly see, the freelancers that you work with, and how you can kind of continue to support them. And I think it has been a growing kind of learning curve throughout the year of testing things out, and trying. I think it's been really quite exciting in a way of trying new ways to come together from the online learning classes that lots of groups have been doing, to kind of really small, almost kind of just over the summer and the autumn, when people could meet again, having really small scale socially distanced classes, and what that looks like. So I think I don't know if you've got any thoughts, Vicky, on.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you've said, and that, as you say, we were in touch with organisations across the borough, and I think what's interesting is different shapes and sizes of organisations. You know, organisations with buildings, organisations that aren't with a building, small, large. They were all kind of wrestling with the same kind of things that you've spoken about, Sarah. I mean, in the performing arts, there are various organisations that we're in touch with, including you, and Extant, your neighbours in Tripod, and I know Maria, who leads Extant, was very concerned and continued to be concerned about the visually impaired artists and people that they work with, and the experience of lockdown being one where it just that increasing challenge of how you navigate the world, with an added layer of kind of anxiety about finding your way safely places, and they they had to work very hard at working out how to communicate effectively through the period. But I think what I've heard sort of accompanying some of these organisations through this period we have a programme where we work with organisations sort of in pockets of neighbourhoods in the borough. So, for example, there's an organisation called Neon Performing Arts who work with young people. A lot of them are keen on dance, and they were trying to sort of do what you were saying of joining sessions, classes from home on their mum's iPhone, or and how very challenging that is. And I see somebody's put Stephen in the chat about it's the digital device, but it's also your home space. Have you even got who are you sharing it with? Have they got something else they want to be doing in that space? Is there room even to stretch out? And but despite all that, I think these young people were finding it quite exciting in the end. Some of it about the framing and the beginning to understand the digital better. And Waterloo Community Theatre is another group that I think have been doing quite a lot online, and some interesting kind of skills and experience have emerged from that. And the other thing I think has been through adversity, and not to say that what's happened in the last year is welcome in any way, but through adversity things are discovered, but also some of the relationships we have had with organisations like yours, I think have strengthened because we've had a different kind of conversation, and we've asked questions we wouldn't have asked previously, and we've heard about things that we weren't aware of previously through kind of saying, how are you, what's going on, how are you coping? So that's actually certainly for us, that's been a silver lining to it all.
Yeah, I would certainly echo the differences in being able to network. Like you said, we're able to ask each other different conversations, have different conversations with our networks, and get to know each other differently, which has been, like you say, a silver lining. And I remember the phone calls with Lambeth in the very early days of the lockdown, and that was terrific support. It was a terrific support to feel that we were still connected to our base, even though we were more scattered across London. And just also reflecting on some of the things that you were saying there about extant, and also the conversations that we've had about digital divide, and this period of time during the different lockdowns is enabled us to reflect on diversity and the inequalities exposed by COVID. Obviously, we're working with people with a disability, so joining up with other groups to make sure that when we do reopen, it's more inclusive has also been a very powerful moment of reflection, how we are going to work together to make sure that can happen. Has also been an important opportunity, and certainly as an organisation, we have been able to think about inclusive practice differently and what we really mean by inclusion, and just having some important reflection time. We've been lucky enough to be able to do that. So that's another opportunity that's come out of this experience.
Yeah, definitely. And Vicky and Dawn, I mean, just thinking like before the past year, if any of us can actually do that, I mean, what would you say have been the sort of the kind of wider changes in the borough in terms of who can be included in the arts?
I'm going to ask Dawn to lead on this, because Dawn's had a number of years kind of seeing firsthand how the borough has engaged with culture. How do you talk about over a decade of experience?
I don't know. I think I think it's I think it is about that. It is about the. I'm thinking back because I've worked in the arts team in the council for over 15 years now, and you know, I remember very early conversations with you, Sarah, on and Oval House on the Demonstrate project, for example, which was kind of one of our first collaborations into really sort of engaging with schools and working on a longer term project to kind of find. I mean, you can talk more about it. It's your program, but testing ways on how we support targeted activities for young people in ways that we hadn't really tried before everything was very much a universal offer. And I think and that's something that I think has become much more of a focus as we continue through especially in the last few years around the Lambeth Equalities Commission, and trying to address all of the that shift away from kind of the sort of the universal offer into how do we make sure that people that aren't engaging in activities become more engaged, not only with their with culture, but also with communities, and how do we try and address some of those gaps and of those conversations that we're not having with people. And I think the Equalities Commission and our cabinet member Sonia Winifred, who heads up the Equalities and Culture cabinet member for. She I think that's a really interesting combination actually of the two, the equalities and culture, and how that sits under one role within the council, and I think it kind of reflects how as a council we want to kind of ensure that we engage engage people better, and I think I might have to get you to come in, Vicky.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Well, I think certainly since I've lived in Lambeth a long time actually, and I used to do quite a bit of work with the South Bank organisations, South Bank Centre particularly, and then more recently National Theatre, and have some links to Rumbear and so on. And then and I've got a little artist studio in Vauxhall as well, and I live in Brixton, and I've kind of grown to really love Lambeth. And I first got involved with the council because Dawn actually asked me to come and take part in writing a bid for Lambeth to become London Borough of Culture. So some of you might have heard of the Mayor of London's London Borough of Culture programme, and different boroughs bid to become London Borough of Culture for a year, and the council that won that first year beat us just to it was Walthamstow. But the process of putting together our bid, which we were told was very close to winning and was a really good one, so we like to kind of celebrate that, was really fun. You know, we went out with quite a big team and spoke to as many different organisations, artists, communities across the borough as we could, visiting tenants' organisations, getting young people together, visiting different what could you say, different cultures in the borough, like the Portuguese communities, Somali, and really trying to understand what people thought culture looked like in the borough. So you know, you have your South Bank cluster of established organisations, but also the thing that people were telling us was really important was the creative activity they took part in in their tenants and residents hall, or the street party that happened last summer, and could more of those happen, and could the council please make road closures easier, and so on. And then you get to COVID actually, and that has meant that some of these things that used to take ages we can now do quite quickly, like close a road or shift something around or build extra pavement. So some of those things have been interesting. But I think, you know, the shift that we were trying to achieve with that London Borough of Culture was one of what Dawn's saying, which is, you know, the art for everyone. Remember that older Arts Council slogan? Yes, and culture belongs to everyone. And I guess what we were trying to do with the Borough of Culture was say, and it will be led by the people in the borough. So that, and I don't think this is not unique to Lambeth at all, but happening across the arts, culture and boroughs, of trying to make sure that people like us become more facilitators for those people that are actually out there doing things to kind of lead. And certainly we do a lot of work now with young people, and so what are they dreaming of, what do they see ahead of them, and then we're trying to kind of bring those dreams to life, I guess. And I suppose I could talk about a programme that we run called Elevate, which actually came out of that Borough of Culture bid, because we did receive an award, a sort of second prize. It was a Cultural Impact Award. And that allowed us to start a programme called Elevate, which we speak about as Lambeth's mission to open up the creative and cultural sector for every young person in the borough. And Corali's a kind of wonderful partner in that. But I mean, with that, we've got a really kind of strong commitment to making sure that those people we work with are helping us to ensure that the creative industries become more representative of the diversity that we see and know in the borough. So that might be about ethnicity, that might be about disability, that might be about gender, that might be about anyone who is not represented in the way that they should be, or in the quantity that it should be. We're trying to make sure that pathways into the industry and the ability to engage is there. And it's a partnership model. So although the council is kind of a dynamo at the centre of it, we rely on working with partners like Corali, who are kind of expert at drawing people that we might want to reach into cultural engagement. Have I gone on now? Where have we got to? Where have we got to in this talk?
I think thank you both. I really enjoy having the opportunity to hear you speak about what inclusion means, and that's a wonderful opportunity. So thank you both really very much. And I was taken with the idea of long-term change that you were speaking about, Dawn, and actually reflecting on how our work together has started a long time ago, not since we moved into the town hall, but actually we've been working together, as Jen said, for many years, since at least 2006, and that it is about looking at how we can, it feels like now that I've heard you talk, I understand much more what we are doing and have been doing, which is to say, who isn't included in the arts and how can we help them be included, and that we can't expect to do that overnight. We have to find different means and ways, and one of those is just, as you've both said, going out and talking to people, but it's also about setting up flagship projects that enable that to happen, and testing out different ways that we can make things happen. And thinking about Corali's involvement with Elevate, and we were laughing when we met up just before this call, because a gentleman called DJ Husni, and his nickname is DJ, is an advisor with the Elevate group, and he's also a tutor on the Demonstrate project that that Dawn mentioned, which is for young people with profound needs. And DJ has become a role model for other young people, people of colour and with a learning disability. He's out there doing it, but also supported by Coralie and by the council to showcase what he can do. And now he can show others what is possible. But that takes time. So I think that the long-term commitment to change is what I feel is really enriched by working in collaboration and in partnership. Yeah. So it was wonderful to hear you both speak, because it made that so clear. Thank you.
I mean, I'll just add to that DJ is part of a group called the Elevators. They self-names the Elevators, and they are young people who guide our Elevate programme and tell us, you know, what it ought to be doing. And we also enjoy working with those young people, because they all have, you know, fantastic talents that they can bring to the programme. So not so much in the last year, but we're always looking for moments when they can not just kind of contribute to what that programme is and how it benefits others, but they also are able to, we're able to give a platform to their talents. So DJ created a dance for the launch of Elevate, which happened at the Rumbear Studios in the summer of 2019, and that was a really kind of wonderful moment, I think. So DJ has kind of served his time as an elevator and is going to become an associate elevator now, but we still hope to pull him in on various things as a champion and as someone who can, as Sarah was saying, be visible as a role model for others in English. Yeah.
And just to say that the Elevate meetings that I've attended in lockdown have been so inspiring, because they are so led by the young people. It feels like it's a really exciting moment in the cultural activities that are happening in the borough, because they really feel like they're being led by the next generation of exciting artists. And it's wonderful to see how you have facilitated that and enabled that to happen. And it's also wonderful that DJ has been part of that discussion.
Yeah, and I think I mean, that's exciting for us too. And those meetings through lockdown were really encouraging, because it seemed, and we were told by that group, that they found the meetings valuable in terms of keeping connected and keeping sane in some cases. But I do think it's also something that we can continue to get better at. And I've quite often had conversations with you, Sarah, about, well, how should I say this, or what would be the best way to invite someone or DJ to do this, or so it's very much a work in progress. And I think sort of looking at that, how over time with Elevate we get better at really allowing sort of proper agency, decision making and power to sit with that group is yeah, that's a work in progress. Yeah,
it's long term.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Long term.
Alex, I've seen the time. I think we haven't asked each other quite all the things that we were going to, but we've actually explored some really interesting things that we, you know, the conversation takes its turn, doesn't it? So I think
it's done exactly what it was supposed to, and letting you guys kind of explore your partnership and, you know, connection as well, which is really cool. But I was going to be really rude and interrupt you, so thank you for doing that. Just because I am conscious of time, there's a few questions in the chat, and I was wondering if I think Liz and Lydia, if you guys are around, maybe Lydia, if you want to go first, you're more than welcome to put your mic on. If that's possible, and maybe you could ask your question. Do we have a setting that allows that to happen? Maybe not.
If not, we could maybe read out the question.
I can do that. So okay, I'll read this out for you, Lydia. So Lydia's asked, do you think lockdown has meant dancers have discovered for the first time that they can dance at home on their own, and that this is a valid part of rehearsing and performing to camera?
I can see the question in the chat as well, so I'm rereading it. For the first time they can dance at home on their own, and this is a valid part. Okay, it's been wonderful how differently each Coralie artist and participant has engaged with the digital offer that we've been able to give. Some dancers have wanted their family with them to share the experience, and some have said, no, this is my time, and taken their devices into their bedrooms so that it really is their own thing during this moment when the rest of the time they're really with their family. So it's been wonderful to see how the connection with Coralie has increased their confidence. So they want to do it on their own, and it is their independent thing, which has been wonderful to see. And I really didn't know that they were going to want to own it so much themselves. In the past, we have had, it's always wonderful to hear that dancers are rehearsing and practicing at home, and it's always incredibly touching to hear how and where they have to do that. This is not necessarily in lockdown when we're making a performance and so comes in and says, I don't have much room in my bathroom, but I've been rehearsing it there, because it's the biggest open space that they might have at home. But in terms of for camera, I definitely think the lockdown has enabled people to understand how self relates, who they are in space and who they are in relationship to other people in space, if that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely, thank you. Okay, there's a couple in here, so I'm just going to shoot through them if that's all right. So Liz has asked, Dawn and Vicky, do you think that there are risks ahead to the equality and rights-based approach to culture that you and Lambeth Council colleagues have led within post-pandemic recovery, or perhaps greater opportunities, closer cross-sector working, etc.?
There are risks ahead to the equality and rights-based approach to culture. And what's the second bit? I keep losing it on the chat.
I think the second bit is in risks ahead within the post-pandemic recovery, whether or not there are any opportunities, or I think I actually think so I've got something happening outside. It's quite loud, distracting me. I actually think there's a lot of actually more opportunities, I think, than I mean, obviously there's always risks in terms of when we're not quite sure what the post-pandemic cultural world's going to look like yet, in terms of the organisations that will be able to re-establish themselves and what that world will be. But at the same time, I think there are lots of opportunities, and I think also it's more of a focus actually on those on tackling a lot of the equalities issues that we've found within the course of the year. I mean, we've had so many different issues that have arisen during the year that I think people have really started to focus on more. And I think there's, coming out of the pandemic, I think there's going to be much more of an opportunity to have those, those conversations that are already starting to happen around, the Black Lives Matter, and especially coming into the new year, actually, with we have the anniversary of 1981 this year, and the uprisings in Brixton, and people are, the community is already having conversations about that and how we commemorate that, and talk about ways forward. And I think I noticed in the chat there's questions around sort of Brixton House Theatre and what work that they'll what part they will play in inclusive arts. Obviously, we can't necessarily talk for Brixton House here, but our initial conversations with Bolahan are very much that he's looking at how Brixton House can become a real venue for the community, and he's not only looking at and I think that's Oval House has always done this anyway, is it's not just about the building and what happens in the building, it's about the community and the organizations that they work with, and the outside of where they're based is very much how what their focus will be. And I think that's kind of echoed through kind of the council's approach to equalities, really, in terms of really sort of targeting more where things are needed.
Yeah, I agree with what Dawn's saying. I think that there's been, certainly from our point of view in the council, a greater resolve, an even greater resolve to commit to matters of equality. And I think we've seen kind of in society just a kind of bottom line, sick of it, absolute change is needed. And so I think people have had time to reflect and to sort of harden their resolve in some ways. What happens from central government and the financial situation, I don't know, but I know that we and lots of other people are ready to kind of fight for the equality that we believe in. I think Bolahan might be on this. I don't know if he wanted. Am I mistaken? Or,
I'm actually not sure if people can unmute themselves.
Hello.
That might just be a technical.
Hello.
Oh, there he is. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know you were here, Bolahan.
That's fine. It's fine. I think you did really well. Thank you for inviting me to join. I think, I can only echo everything that has been said, and the sentiment of this conversation, and the fact that, of course, Oval House is moving to Brixton, and Brixton House might seem like a strange entity arriving in the community, but most of my conversation has been about reaching out to organizations and sort of creative arts organizations and companies based in Brixton and Lambeth, and local artists, and trying to make sure that there is already a gap being and a bridge being built there, in terms of everyone knowing that they can reach me, as much as also have a real kind of input into the work that we're making, as much as also the work that we're making is very much there to respond to what the local people want. People in Brixton, people in South London. I'm from South London myself, and the worst thing you want is to have a building, an organization, or an art venue that you don't necessarily feel connected to in any way. And it's great to see Coralie on here, because Coralie is an organization that we're very proud of, and we are very excited to continue our partnership and see how we can build on the relationship and make the work that they do even more part of our programming, as much as also see how far we can broaden the reach of the work, and where it can really be transformative in people's lives, especially after what it's looking like a tough 2 years of just being a lot of people feeling isolated and disconnected from each other, as much as also the forms of expression that allows people to just have the release and have the expression that, you know, perhaps they haven't necessarily felt they've been able to access in their lives at all in any way, shape or form. So, you know, I'm just really excited for us to kind of make it to an opening of the building, as much as also really get the opportunity to share the building. You know, it is about sharing, and it's about everyone taking ownership of what the building has to offer, and also knowing that there is room for their work to be seen on the stage, or for us to support different platforms and iterations of you know, art that people are making.
That's really exciting. Thank you, Bolahan.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Also.
I'll turn off my mic now.
No, thank you. So to conclude, I'm sure that we could all talk about this for a really long time. Also, thank you so much, by the way. This is so interesting. I feel like these conversations are so important, and it's such a pleasure to kind of have an insight and to see what you guys are doing, because it's obviously amazing work. There were loads of comments in the chat. I don't know if you guys saw, just saying how beautiful the video that you did with the tape was. So I want to just reiterate that, because it was stunning.
The video is so moving and so beautiful, and then it also has such great actual content as well. It's it's really fab.
It was so fresh and honest as well. I just thought that everything about it was beautiful. So thank you, and thank you so much for sharing all of it. I have one last question. What's coming up? What's going to be happening in 2021 from all of you guys?
Just to get in there to say that the film, the Dancing to Art film that we filmed at Tate, is actually the result of a very long-term partnership that we have with Tate. So although it's a 6-minute film that was made in 2019, it's actually the result of a 25-year partnership. And given this conversation tonight was also subject around collaboration and partnership, and I know that Liz Ellis is here this evening, who worked with Coralie right at the beginning of that partnership. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Liz as well, seeing her there. But to get in there with what's happening next this year and next year, like Bolahan was saying, we're hoping to be moving into Brixton House at the end of this year. So we're really excited about having a new base from which we can launch our activities. We're doing a partnership project with a dance duo called Thick and Tight, and we're looking at what happens when you bring a dancer with a learning disability together with a traditionally trained dancer who does not, and looking at different places that can, what happens in the studio between those two dancers, a very authentic exchange. And we're creating our very first family show. At the moment, the working title is Super Hot Hot Dog. And that was the one that I was mentioning right at the beginning of this conversation, which we've started again now with one-to-one Zooms with the performers, which has taken us into a whole new direction that we hadn't expected. And we've suddenly gone sci-fi. So watch out for that.
It sounds really, really exciting. And Dawn and Vicky, what's coming up for you guys?
The Elevate program is we're just embarking on a new 3-year plan for it. So where Sarah's been kind of highlighting that it's a long-term initiative, this is us moving from a kind of pilot stage of 2 years of testing, like Sarah was saying, testing all sorts of approaches and things, into a 3-year delivery of program. And it's fully intended that when we get to the end of that, there'll be the next phase as well. So I suppose these 3 years will give us the chance to kind of really embed the work that we're doing with partners like Coralie. We have 3 strands to that program. One is education, so that's sort of cultural education work. It involves schools, primary, secondary, SEND schools, and PRUs. And then we have employment, which is really that bit where we're making sure that we're doing everything we can to get those young people that are interested into creative employment. And that requires a lot of work with cultural creative employers in the borough. And then we have a neighbourhood strand as well, which is really about making sure that there is exciting creative activity that we are backing and helping to develop in the nooks and crannies of the borough where people live and can access it easily. So that's kind of exciting for Elevate, and we've got lots of other stuff as well going on, like hopefully we'll get back to having exhibitions in the town hall, in the tribe, you know, in the next to the tripod area where you people are based.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Vicky, we're hoping to have a new exhibition up in May, potentially, which will be delivered in partnership with Photo Fusion this time, and they've actually been working with a number of emerging art photographers who, on a kind of subject, well, loosely themed people and place, which is in response to what would you call it? Well, a series of it's a over 100-year-old display of photographs of the very first councillors that the Lambeth Council had, and it's kind of a very ornate sort of black and white photos, studio photos of lots of men with fantastic beards and moustaches, and it was installed pretty much for the first time, really, when we reopened the town hall a few years ago. It kind of came out of storage, and we felt it was a nice opportunity to create a sort of modern response to that. So that's where the exhibition will be kind of takes that as a starting off point. So we're really excited to see what comes out of that.
I'm looking forward to seeing it all. Sounds amazing. Also, just the idea of a gallery sounds great right now. So I'm just thinking that maybe we've probably run over by a really, really long time. So thank you so much for everyone being here for such a long time and listening to everyone chat and stuff. I've really enjoyed it. I hope everyone else has as well. If it's okay, I'm just going to let everyone know that we have another tripod event happening next week, which is actually given by Extant, who you guys mentioned before. They're like a performing arts company, and they work with inclusive design and specifically with people who are visually impaired. And it's going to be really exciting. They're giving a lecture. So if anyone here is interested, you're welcome to come along. I'm actually going to leave a link to it in the chat, maybe. And then if you guys are interested, you could come and join along and ask more questions and get to meet everyone. But yeah, I mean, you guys are a wonderful example of how collaboration between amazing organizations can maintain really, really positive work in a great borough that I think we all love. So yeah, so thank you so much for all your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
for asking us, and thank you everyone for coming. That's brilliant.
Yeah, thank you so much everyone for coming, and thank you guys for your wonderful insights. This has been a pleasure.
Thanks for inviting us, Coralie.
Yes, thank you.
And
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Everybody have a lovely evening.
Have a lovely evening.
Good evening.
So much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.